Beloved seekers of freedom, dear family of those who dare to dream beyond the ordinary, there's a moment that comes to every person, a quiet, sacred moment, when you realize that the life you've been living isn't really yours. It belongs to your boss who decides when you can take vacation. It belongs to your creditors who own your paycheck before you even see it. It belongs to your family members who guilt you into decisions you don't want to make. It belongs to friends who expect you to live at their pace, spend at their level, perform for their approval. And somewhere deep inside, in that place where truth lies, you understand something profound. You are not free. But here's what nobody tells you. Here's the secret that changes everything. The reason getting rich is simple. The entire purpose of building wealth. It's not about the cars or the houses or the luxury vacations everyone posts on social media. It's about something far more valuable. Something money can buy that nothing else can. Total freedom from people. Let me tell you about a day that changed my understanding of everything. I was 38 years old, successful by conventional measures. Good income, respected career, nice home, all the trappings. But I was sitting in a meeting I didn't want to attend, listening to a boss I didn't respect, discussing a project I didn't care about, and I had to smile, nod, agree, participate enthusiastically, because I needed the paycheck, because I had obligations, because I had built a life that required that income to sustain it. In that moment, I realized something that made my stomach turn. I was owned, not legally, not explicitly, but practically, functionally, completely. My time wasn't mine. My opinions weren't mine. Even my facial expressions weren't mine. I was performing, playing a role, living someone else's script. And the price of freedom, the cost of being able to say no to that meeting, that boss, that life, it was measurable, calculable, achievable. It was wealth, that realization, that moment of clarity. It set me on a path that changed everything. Not because I wanted to be rich to impress people, not because I wanted luxury for its own sake, but because I wanted freedom, real freedom, the freedom to say no to anyone at any time for any reason. And what I discovered on that path, what I learned through decades of building wealth and watching others do the same, is that getting rich is actually simple, not easy, but simple. And the reason it's simple, because the goal isn't complex. You're not trying to buy things, you're buying freedom from people, from bosses, from clients, from relatives, from friends, from society's expectations, from anyone who wants to dictate how you spend your time, your energy, your life. And once you understand that, once that becomes your why, everything else falls into place. Let me tell you what freedom from people actually means. It's not about becoming a hermit. It's not about hating humanity or isolating yourself. It's about choice. It's about waking up and choosing who you spend time with, not being forced by financial necessity. It's about having difficult conversations without fear of losing income. It's about helping people because you want to, not because you need something from them. It's about relationships based on genuine connection, not economic dependency. I knew a man, we'll call him Thomas. Thomas was a talented architect, 46 years old, worked for a large firm. His boss was a nightmare, micromanaging, condescending, belittling. Thomas hated going to work. It was destroying his soul, his health, his marriage. But he couldn't quit. He had a mortgage, car payments, kids in private school, a lifestyle that required $180 in a year to maintain. He was trapped. One evening, Thomas and I had dinner. He was exhausted, defeated. I feel like a prisoner, he said, but I can't leave. I need the money. I asked him a simple question. How much would you need in investments generating passive income to never need this job again? He thought about it. Maybe 100,000 a year to cover everything and have some cushion. So about 5 million invested at 4% returns, I said. That's your freedom number. That's what stands between you and total freedom from your boss. Thomas looked at me like I just told him to climb Mount Everest. I'll never have that much. It's impossible, but I pushed him. What if you restructured your life? What if you stopped spending $180 and started living on $100? What if you invested the $80 difference? I can't give up our lifestyle, he said immediately. So the lifestyle is more important than your freedom, I asked. He went silent. That conversation haunted Thomas for weeks, months. And then something shifted. He sat down with his wife, They had an honest conversation about what they were sacrificing for appearances. The big house they barely used. The luxury cars that impressed neighbors. The private school that strained their budget. The country club membership they felt obligated to maintain. They made a radical decision. They sold the house. Moved to a smaller home. Their mortgage dropped from Forther's 200 to Oz 800. They sold the luxury cars. Bought reliable used vehicles. Payments dropped from 1,400 to 0. They moved the kids to excellent public schools. Saved $2,800 a month. They quit the country club. Saved $800 a month. Total monthly savings. That's $76,800 a year. Thomas kept working, but now he was investing the $706,000 annually, or when $76,000 saved, year $260,000, year 3, $2 to $52,000, $12,000, year 7, $6 to $65,000, year 10 to 08, $2,000. By year 10, Thomas was 56 years old. His portfolio was generating $43,000 annually in dividends and interest. His lifestyle only required $100,000. He still needed to work, but only for $57,000. He quit the nightmare job, started consulting part-time, set his own hours, chose his clients. 3 years later, at 59, his portfolio hit $1 or $6 million, generating $64,000 annually. He quit working entirely. And his nightmare boss, still there, still miserable, still controlling other people's lives, but not Thomas's. Never again. This is what freedom from people looks like. Not instantaneous, not magical, not mysterious. Simple mathematics, consistent execution, unwavering focus on the goal. Thomas traded appearances for freedom, impressive lifestyle for actual liberty. And in 10 years, he bought something his neighbors with their big houses and luxury cars will never own. The ability to say no to anyone at any time forever. Now let me tell you why this is simpler than people think. The formula for freedom isn't complicated. S freedom number annual expenses safe withdrawal rate. If you need $80,000 a year to live and you use a 4% withdrawal rate, your freedom number is $2 million. That's it. That's the calculation. Build $2 million in assets generating 4% returns, and you never need to work again. You never need to tolerate toxic people again. You never need to smile and nod when you want to scream. But $2 million is impossible. You say, let me show you how Thomas did, how anyone can do it. He saved a $76,000 a year for 10 years. That's $760,000 in contributions. But his portfolio wasn't worth $760,000. It was worth $82,000. Why? Because the money he invested in years 1 through 5 was growing while he added more in years 6 through 10. Compound growth. The money working. Earning returns. Building on itself. Here's the beautiful part. You don't need to save $76,000 a year. That was Thomas's number based on his income. If you save $30,000 a year for 20 years at 7% returns, you'll have $13 million. If you save $20 a year for 25 years, you'll have $35 million. If you save $15,000 a year for 30 years, you'll have $45 million. The formula is flexible. The principle is constant. But here's what's not flexible: your focus. You must know what you're building toward. And it's not a vacation home. It's not a luxury car. It's not impressing anyone. You're building freedom from people. Every dollar you save is purchasing independence. Every investment is buying sovereignty. Every sacrifice today is trading dependence for autonomy tomorrow. Let me tell you about another person. We'll call her Maria. Maria was 34, making $68 a year as a nurse. She had a complicated relationship with her mother. Her mother was controlling, manipulative. Used money as leverage. I helped you through college. You owe me. I loaned you money for your car. You need to do this for me. Every family gathering, every holiday, every phone call, strings attached, obligations, guilt. Maria felt suffocated, but she also felt she had no choice because she did owe her mother money, though $18,000 from various loans over the years. That $18,000 was a chain. It gave her mother power, authority, control. Maria came to a decision. She would pay back every penny. Then she would build wealth. Specifically so no one could ever have financial leverage over her again. She moved into a studio apartment, bare bones, $800,000 a month instead of $500. She drove a 12-year-old car instead of upgrading. She worked extra shifts when available. She lived on a $35,000 a year, invested the remaining $33,000 after taxes. In 8 months, she paid back her mother in full, every dollar, plus interest. The phone call when she made the final payment. Maria told me about it later. Mom, I'm transferring the last $2,000. We're even now. All debts paid. Her mother was stunned, then angry, because she'd lost her leverage. After everything I've done for you, I appreciate it. Maria said calmly. And I've paid you back? With interest. We're square? But family doesn't keep score. I do, Maria said. From now on, our relationship is about love, not obligation. I won't borrow from you again, and you won't be able to use money to influence my decisions. Her mother was furious for months. Eventually, she came around, but the relationship changed. It became healthier, based on genuine connection, not financial entanglement. Maria continued her disciplined savings. After 10 years, at age 44, she had $420 invested, generating $16,800 a year passively, covering 40% of her expenses. She cut back to part-time nursing, did the work she loved, avoided the shift she hated. By age 55, she had $890,000, generating $35,600 annually. She quit nursing entirely, traveled, volunteered, lived on her terms, and her mother never had financial leverage over her again. This is what I mean by freedom from people. It's not about being cold. It's not about rejecting relationships. It's about ensuring that every relationship in your life is voluntary, chosen, based on authentic connection, not financial necessity. When you have money, you can love people without needing them, help people without being used by them, engage with people without being controlled by them. This is the freedom wealth buys, and it's priceless. Now, let me tell you about the 3 levels of freedom. Understanding these levels will help you set your goals. Know where you are. Know where you're going. At level 1, freedom from destitution. This is the first goal. Emergency savings, $10,000 to $20,000 in cash, liquid, accessible. This buys you freedom from immediate crisis. From one unexpected expense destroying your life, you lose your job. You have 3 months to figure it out. Your car breaks down. You fix it without panic. Medical emergency. You handle it without debt. This level isn't wealth, but it's essential. It's the foundation of all other freedom. As level 2, freedom from bad situations. This is when you have enough assets that you can leave bad situations without immediate devastation. Toxic job. You can quit and survive for 6 to 12 months while finding something better. Bad relationship. You can leave without being trapped by financial dependence. Exploitative client. You can fire them. Dangerous living situation. You can move. This level requires more than emergency savings. It requires maybe $50,000 to $100,000 in liquid assets, depending on your expenses. Not enough to retire, but enough to escape bad situations and rebuild. Level 3, freedom from all people. This is complete financial independence. Your assets generate enough passive income to cover all your expenses indefinitely. You never have to work again. Never have to tolerate anything or anyone you don't want to. Your time is entirely your own. Your decisions are entirely your own. Your life is entirely your own. This requires the serious money. $1 million to $3 million for most people, depending on lifestyle, but it's achievable. Completely achievable with time, discipline, and focus. 2. The hardest part of building wealth for freedom isn't the math. It's not finding the right investments. It's not learning about compound interest. It's not even saving money. The hardest part, the part that stops most people before they even begin, is overcoming the psychological addiction to other people's approval. Because society has trained you from birth to seek external validation. Your parents' approval, your teachers' grades, your friends' acceptance, your neighbors' admiration, your colleagues' respect, and money. Specifically, how you spend money has become the primary currency of that approval. Let me tell you about a man I knew. We'll call him Richard. Richard made $240,000 a year, vice president at a financial services company. By all external measures, he was wildly successful. BMW 10 Series, $3,200 a month payment. House in an exclusive neighborhood, $6,800 mortgage. Country club membership. Private schools for kids, luxury vacations. Designer clothes. He looked like wealth personified. But Richard had a secret that kept him awake at night. He had $37,000 in his savings account. That was it. At age 48, after 25 years of working, $37,000 saved. Why? Because every dollar he earned was spent on maintaining appearances. The BMW wasn't because he loved driving. It was because that's what VPs at his level were expected to drive. The house wasn't because his family needed that much space. It was because you couldn't be a VP living in a modest neighborhood. The country club wasn't because he enjoyed golf. It was because that's where deals happened and relationships were built. Every single expense, chosen not for his own joy or need, but for other people's perception. And here's what killed him inside. He hated his job. despised it, the politics, the backstabbing, the pressure, the performative nonsense. But he couldn't leave, because leaving meant losing the income, and losing the income meant losing the lifestyle, and losing the lifestyle meant what? What would people think? He was trapped, not by lack of income, by abundance of approval seeking. One day Richard had a panic attack at work, serious one. Ambulance, hospital, the whole event. The doctors found nothing physically wrong. Stress, anxiety, burnout, that's when he came to me. I can't do this anymore, he said, but I can't quit. I have obligations, responsibilities, people depending on me. I asked him to do an exercise, a simple one. Write down every expense you have. Then mark each one. Is this for you and your family's genuine well-being, or is this for other people's perception? He came back a week later. The list was devastating. 3 of 200 BMW payment. Perception, 6 to 800 mortgage on 4 500 SKU for house, mostly perception. $2 100 country club, entirely perception. $2 800 private school, mixed. Designer clothes, luxury vacations. Expensive restaurants, 80% perception. Total monthly spending on perception, approximately 9 to 800. That's a 1 or 1700 a year. Spent on what other people think. 2. What if, I asked him, you stop buying approval? What if you live for yourself instead of for an audience? I'd be a failure, he said immediately. In whose eyes? Silence. In your own eyes. Or in the eyes of people you don't even like. More silence. That question broke something open in Richard. He went home. Had a long, honest conversation with his wife. I'm dying, he told her. This life is killing me. And it's not even our life. It's a performance. To her credit, she agreed. She'd been feeling it too. The pressure, the emptiness, the exhaustion of maintaining an image. They made a plan, a radical one by their social circle standards. Moved to a comfortable but modest home. Mortgage dropped to $2,400. They sold the BMW, bought a 3-year-old Lexus for cash, $0 payment. They quit the country club, $2,100 saved. They moved the kids to excellent public schools. $2,800 saved. They stopped buying designer everything. Cut discretionary spending by $2,000 a month. Total monthly savings at $10,300. Total annual savings $123,600. For the first few months it was hard, really hard. Not financially, that part was easy. They had more cash flow than ever. But socially brutal. His colleagues made comments. Downsizing already, rough year. His neighbors wondered what was wrong. Did something happen? Former country club friends stopped inviting them to things. The other private school parents were confused. You're moving them to public school. But why? Richard told me about those early months. The judgment. The awkwardness. The sense of falling out of their social class. But here's what's strange. He said, I thought I'd feel diminished. Less than. A failure, I feel lighter. Freer. Like I've been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there, and suddenly it's gone. His wife felt it too. She told him one evening, I didn't realize how much energy I was spending on maintaining appearances, making sure everything looked perfect for people I didn't even enjoy being around. Now I have energy for things I actually care about. Time with the kids, reading, hobbies I'd abandoned, or spending less and living more. But here's the real transformation. Richard started investing that $123,600 every year. Year 1 to 123. Year 2, $255,000. Year 3, $396,000. Year 5, like $706,000. Year 7, in audio, $87,000. At year 7, Richard was 55 years old. His portfolio was generating $480 a year in passive income. His new modest lifestyle required about $95 annually. He still needed to work, but not at that job, not in that environment, not for those people. He quit the VP position, the politics, the stress, the performance. He started consulting, 20 hours a week. Projects he chose, clients he liked, made 65 hours a year doing work he actually enjoyed. Combined with his passive income, he was covering his expenses and still adding to investments. 3 years later, at 58, his portfolio hit $16 million, generating $64,000 annually. He quit consulting entirely. And you know what? The people he was trying to impress, they were still trapped, still in jobs they hated, still spending every dollar on appearances, still pretending. Still owned by other people's opinions. Richard was free, completely free. Not because he got rich by conventional standards, but because he stopped spending money on approval and started spending it on freedom. This is the psychological shift that changes everything. You must ask yourself, am I building wealth for me or for an audience? Because you cannot do both. Impressing people is expensive, exhausting, endless. There's always someone with a bigger house, a nicer car, a more exotic vacation. The approval treadmill never stops. The bar keeps rising. The performance never ends. But freedom has a number, a specific, calculable, achievable number. Once you hit it, you're done. You've won. You're free. No one can take it from you. No one's opinion matters anymore. You own your time. The architecture of freedom building passive income. Now let me show you how to actually build this freedom. The specific investments. The actual strategy. There are 3 primary vehicles for creating passive income. 3 ways to make money work for you so you don't have to work for anyone else. Vehicle 1, dividend paying stocks. This is the most accessible, the most liquid, the most straightforward. You buy shares of companies that pay dividends. Every quarter they send you money, just for owning the stock. Not because you work, not because you sold anything, not because you performed, just because you own the asset. Let me give you the math. You invest $400,000 in Dividend Aristocrats, companies that have raised their dividends every year for 25 full years. Average dividend yield 3.5%. Annual dividend income in $14,000. That's $167 a month in cash to your account. Forever. You didn't work for it. You didn't earn it through labor. Your capital earned it. But here's the beautiful part. Those dividends grow. The companies that them every year, usually 5-7% annually. So $14,000 this year becomes a $15,000 next year. Then $16,000, then the $17,000. In 10 years, that $14,000 has grown to a $27,000 annually. Your income doubled without you adding a single dollar more. And if you reinvest those dividends in the early years, if you use them to buy more shares, the compounding accelerates exponentially. $400,000 invested at 3.5% yield with 6% dividend growth annually. Year 50 generating $18,000 a year. Year 100 generating $27,000 a year. Year 50 generating $40,000 a year. Year generating $60,000 a year. This is how you buy freedom, 1 dividend check at a time. Johnson & Johnson, been paying and raising dividends for 61 years. Procter & Gamble, 67 consecutive years of increases. Coca-Cola, 61 years. These companies were paying dividends when your grandparents were young. They'll be paying dividends when your grandchildren are old. Boring, stable, reliable, free. Here's vehicle 2, rental real estate. This requires more capital up front, more management, more complexity, but the returns, the freedom it creates, can be extraordinary. You buy a rental property for $200,000, put $40,000 down, finance $160,000 at 7%, mortgage payment at $160.40 a month, add taxes, insurance, maintenance, expenses about $1,000 a month. You rent it for $200,000 a month, net cash flow $1,000 a month. $6,000 a year, that's 15% cash on cash return on your $40,000 down payment. But it's even better than that. Your tenant is paying down your mortgage. Every month, about $330 goes to principal. That's $3,960 a year in equity you're building. Forced savings. The property appreciates conservatively 3% annually. On $200,000, that's $6 a year in appreciation. Added up, cash flow $6,000. Equity build up 3 years, appreciation $6,000, and total annual return of $15,960 on your $40,000 investments, almost 40% return year after year. But I don't have $40,000. You say, then save it aggressively. Ruthlessly. If you save $100 or $500 a month, you'll have $40,000 in 27 months. 2 years and 3 months from now, you could own your first rental property. From there, you use the equity and cash flow to buy the next one. In 10 years, you could own 5 properties, generating $30,000 a year in cash flow. In 20 years, they're paid off, generating $120,000 a year total freedom from rental income while you sleep. Vehicle 3, a small business that runs without you. This is the hardest to build, but potentially the most lucrative. A business that operates without your daily involvement, with systems, with employees or contractors, with processes. You own it. It generates profit. You collect the income. Examples. A vending machine wrote. You own machines. Someone services them. You collect profit. A laundromat manager runs it. You collect the excess after expenses. An online business, automated sales, outsourced fulfillment. You oversee strategy. A storage facility, mostly passive. Tenants rent units. You collect rent. 2, these are harder to find, harder to set up, require more initial capital, but once they're running, they can generate $1,010 in a month. Passive income, business income, freedom income. The ideal scenario, you combine all 3. Dividend stocks for liquidity and reliability. rental properties for leverage and forced equity building, a small business for higher returns and tax advantages. Together, they create multiple streams of passive income, multiple paths to freedom, multiple sources of money, too. As the freedom timeline, let me give you realistic timelines, so you know what to expect. These aren't fantasies. These are mathematics based on real numbers.
No.
Scenario 1, aggressive saver. You make 85,000 a year. You live on 45,000. You invest a 40,000. You're 2 to 30,000 invested, generating 9 of 2,000 a year passive income. You're 47,000 invested, generating 20,900 a year passive income. You're 50,000 or all 2, generating $48 or 100 a year passive income. You're $2 another 640,000 invested, generating 65,600 a year passive income. At year 15, your passive income covers most of your 45,000 expenses. You're nearly free. At year 20, it exceeds your expenses. You're completely free. Hey, scenario 2, moderate saver. Or another year, you live on 45,000. You invested 20 years annually. You're 174,000 invested, generating 11,000 a year passive income. You're 55 out of 1,000 invested. Dollars a year passive income. Year 20,000 invested, generating 32,800 a year passive income. Year 2051 is 268,000 invested, generating 700 a year passive income. At year 25, you're covering your expenses. You're free. It takes longer, but you get there. Scenario 3, late starter. You're 45. You have 50,000 saved. You invest $30,000 a year for the next 20 years. You're 10 to 40, $80 in total, generating a 19,200 a year passive income. You're 50, generating a 32,300 a year passive income. You're 21 and 3, 18,000 total, generating 52,700 a year passive income. At age 65, you have 3 million, generating 52,700 a year. You never have to work again. You're free at 65. Late, but free. The timelines are different, but the destination is the same. Freedom from people. Freedom from performance. Freedom from needing anyone's approval, permission, or paycheck. The people you leave behind. Now let me tell you about something nobody talks about. When you pursue financial freedom, when you stop living for appearances, when you prioritize independence over approval, you lose people. Not everyone, but some people, sometimes many people. Friends who can't understand why you're not keeping up with their spending. Family members who think you're being cheap or weird. Colleagues who see your frugality as a judgment of their excess. Social circles that drift away when you're no longer participating in their expensive lifestyle. This is hard, really hard. Humans are social creatures. We want to belong. We fear exclusion. And when you make different choices, when you refuse to play the game, some people take it personally. Some people distance themselves. Some people judge. Let me tell you about a woman. Sarah was 32, making $78,000 as a marketing manager. She decided to pursue financial independence. Moved from a $1,600 a month apartment to a $900 a month apartment. Stopped buying new clothes. Started meal prepping instead of eating out. Drove a 10-year-old car. She was saving $35,000 a year. Building real wealth. Getting closer to freedom every month. But her friends, they couldn't understand. Why are you living like a college student? You make good money. Come on, just buy the dress. You can afford it. We're going to Miami for the weekend. Stop being cheap and come with us. Every gathering became an interrogation. Every declined invitation created tension. They weren't bad people, but they couldn't comprehend a different value system. To them, money was for spending. Life was for enjoying now. Saving was something you did after you'd lived. To Sarah, money was for freedom. Life was something you designed intentionally. Sacrifice now meant liberty later. Slowly, painfully, she drifted from that friend group. Not because of anger, not because of drama. Just incompatibility, different priorities, different paths. She told me, I felt lonely. Really lonely. Like I was crazy for wanting something different. But then I asked myself, would I rather have their company now and their life in 20 years? Or be alone now and free in 20 years? The answer was obvious. Here's what happened to Sarah. She stayed disciplined, kept investing, kept building. And something interesting occurred. She found new friends, different friends, people at the library, at hiking groups, at volunteer organizations, people who valued experiences over possessions, depth over surface, freedom over appearances, better friends, real friends, friends who admired her discipline instead of mocking it. By age 45, 13 years later, Sarah had $618,000 invested, generating a 24,700 a year in passive income. She cut back to part-time work, did marketing consulting on her terms. Her old friends, some were still living paycheck to paycheck despite making six figures. Still trapped, still performing, still owned by their lifestyle. Sarah was free, not completely yet, but close, so close. And the loneliness she'd felt at 32, gone, replaced by genuine relationships with people who understood what freedom meant. There's a paradox at the heart of building wealth for freedom. A beautiful, unexpected paradox that reveals itself only after years of pursuing independence. When you start, you're running away from people, from their control, from their judgment, from their power over you. You're motivated by resentment, by frustration, by the burning desire to escape. But somewhere along the journey, something shifts. You stop running away from people and start running toward yourself. The freedom you thought was about them turns out to be about you. Oh, let me tell you about a moment I'll never forget. I was 53 years old. I'd been building wealth intentionally for 15 years. My portfolio had crossed $2 a million. My passive income exceeded my expenses by a comfortable margin. I was, by any objective measure, financially independent. I could quit, walk away, never work another day, never answer to anyone. And I was sitting in a meeting I'd taken by choice, not necessity, with people I genuinely respected, when I realized something profound. I wasn't there because I needed the money. I wasn't there because I needed the validation. I wasn't there because I was afraid of saying no. I was there because I wanted to be, because the work interested me, because I valued the people. For the first time in my adult life, I was present somewhere by pure choice. No fear underneath it, no obligation, no performance, just presence. That's when I understood what freedom from people actually creates. It doesn't make you antisocial. It doesn't make you a hermit. It doesn't make you cold or disconnected. It makes you fully present, fully authentic, fully yourself, because you're not performing anymore. You're not managing anyone's perception. You're not afraid. You can love without needing, help without being used, engage without being controlled. You can be completely, genuinely, fearlessly yourself. This is the transformation nobody tells you about. The journey to financial freedom. It changes you at a fundamental level, not because money changes you, but because the process of achieving freedom does. The transformation, who you becoming. Let me describe the stages, because everyone who achieves real financial freedom goes through them too. Stage 1, the awakening. This is where you are now, or where you were recently, the moment you realized you're trapped, that your life isn't entirely yours, that people have power over you because you need them, for income, for approval, for security. This stage is painful, uncomfortable, sometimes enraging, but it's necessary, because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. Stage 2, the rebellion. This is when you start making different choices. You cut expenses, you start investing. You stop buying what you don't need. Your friends think you're being weird. Your family thinks you're being cheap, but you don't care. Or rather, you care, but you care more about freedom. This stage is lonely. You're moving against the current, swimming upstream. Everyone around you is spending, consuming, living for today. You're saving, building, planning for tomorrow. You feel misunderstood. Sometimes you doubt yourself, but you keep going. Stage 3, the discipline. This is the long middle, 5, 10, 15 years of consistent execution. The rebellion phase had passion, anger even, that fuel that powered the initial changes. But that fades, and what remains is discipline. Waking up every day and making the same choices, investing the same amounts, living below your means month after month, year after year, no drama, no excitement, just consistency. This is where most people fail, not because discipline is hard, but because consistency is boring, and humans crave novelty. I knew a man who made it through rebellion. He was fired up, cutting expenses, investing aggressively. For 2 years he was unstoppable. Then the passion faded, and he couldn't sustain the discipline without it. He went back to his old habits, spending, consuming, living for today. 5 years later, he had nothing to show for those 2 rebellious years, because transformation requires more than intensity. It requires duration. But those who make it through this stage, those who find a way to sustain discipline for a decade or more, they reach something remarkable. Stage 4, the momentum. This is when the math becomes magical. For years, you've been investing $2,000 a month or $3,000 or $1,000 or whatever your number is, and the balance grew but slowly, linearly, predictably. Then suddenly, around year 7 or 10, something shifts. Your investment returns start exceeding your contributions. You add a 36,000 this year, but your portfolio grows by 85,000. Your money is making more money than you make at your job. This is when you realize you're going to win, not someday, not maybe, definitely. The math is working. The compound growth is accelerating. The finish line is visible. This phase is intoxicating, exciting, validating. All those years of discipline, they're paying off exponentially. Stage 5, the liberation. This is when you cross your freedom number. Your passive income exceeds your expenses. You don't need employment income anymore. You can quit. Walk away. Say no to anything. Say yes only to what you choose. Most people expect this moment to be euphoric, a celebration, fireworks, but it's usually quiet. A spreadsheet, a calculation, a realization. I'm free. Some people quit immediately. The job, the clients, the obligations. Others keep working, but differently, by choice, on their terms. The work doesn't change, but the relationship to it does. Before, I have to do this. After, I choose to do this. That shift, that tiny word change, it changes everything. 2, stage 6, the integration. This is the stage few people talk about, but it's the most important. You've achieved freedom from people. You have the money, the independence, the options. Now what? Because here's what nobody warns you about. Freedom is terrifying. When you can do anything, what do? When no one controls you, how do you structure your days? When you don't need to work, what gives your life meaning? I've seen people achieve financial independence and fall apart. No purpose, no direction, no motivation. They thought freedom would solve everything, give them clarity, provide fulfillment. Instead, it just revealed the emptiness that work had been masking. But for those who navigate this stage successfully, something beautiful happens. They discover who they actually are, not the employee, not the performer, not the provider, not the earner, themselves. Their authentic self, the person underneath all the roles. They find purpose that isn't driven by necessity, work that comes from genuine interest, relationships based on real connection. They integrate freedom into their identity. They become free people, not just people with money. 2. Let me tell you about a man who reached this stage. We'll call him James. James hit financial independence at 51, $4 million invested. The 96,000 annual passive income. He quit his corporate job immediately, celebrated, traveled, relaxed for 6 months. It was wonderful, liberating, everything he dreamed of. Then, around month 7, he started feeling empty. I have all this freedom, he told me, and I don't know what to do with it. I thought I'd be happy, just being free, not working, not having obligations. But I'm bored, directionless. I feel like I'm wasting my life. I asked him, when you were working, what did you dream about doing if you had time? He thought, I always wanted to learn woodworking, to build furniture. So why aren't you? Because, I don't know. It feels frivolous, like I should be doing something important. This is the trap. Even in freedom, we carry the programming. That work must be productive. That time must be optimized. That we must justify our existence through achievement. But James was already financially productive. His assets were working. His investments were growing. He didn't need to be productive anymore. He needed to be alive. I challenged him. For the next 6 months, I want you to do something radical. Pursue things purely because they interest you, not because they're productive or impressive or important, just because you want to. James bought woodworking equipment, started taking classes, spent hours in his garage creating. At first, he felt guilty, like he was wasting time. But slowly that guilt faded, and something else emerged, joy. Genuine, childlike joy he was creating, learning, growing, not for money, not for approval, for himself. A year later, James had transformed. He'd built a small studio, created beautiful furniture, given pieces to family and friends. He'd started teaching woodworking to teenagers in his community. He was more fulfilled than he'd been in his entire career. I spent 30 years being productive, he told me, making money, achieving, climbing, and it was necessary. It got me here. But this is what I was earning freedom for, to be fully myself, to create without constraint, to give without depletion. I'm not less, I'm more. More present, more alive. More me. This is what true freedom from people creates. Not just the ability to say no, but the ability to say yes to yourself. Not just escape from control, but entry into authenticity. Not just independence from others, but dependence on your own values, interests, curiosity. The ultimate truth, freedom is internal. Now let me tell you the deepest truth, the one that completes the circle, the journey to financial freedom. All the saving, investing, sacrificing, building. It's not really about the money. The money is just the tool, the vehicle, the means. What you're actually building is internal freedom, too. Because here's what happens along the way. When you stop spending money to impress people, you stop needing their approval. When you stop buying things to fill emotional voids, you start addressing those voids directly. When you stop trading your time for money you don't need, you start valuing your time differently. When you stop performing for external validation, you start developing internal validation. The discipline required to achieve financial freedom, it builds character. Delayed gratification becomes natural. Patience becomes your default. Long-term thinking becomes automatic. You become someone who can say no to immediate pleasure for future freedom. Someone who can endure social pressure without conforming. Someone who can maintain course despite doubt and criticism. 2. And here's the paradox. By the time you achieve financial freedom from people, you've already achieved psychological freedom from people. The money just confirms what's already happened internally. You're already free. The bank account just makes it official. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a young woman, 29 years old, just starting her journey. How long until I'm free? She asked. Depends, I said. How much do you spend? How much can you save? She did the math. About 18 years. I'll be 47. She looked devastated. That's so long. Almost half my life from now. I asked her, what if I told you that the person you'll be at 47? Free, independent, unbound. That person is created not by reaching the goal, but by pursuing it. That every year of discipline, every sacrifice, every choice to build instead of consume, that's shaping you into someone who doesn't need external validation. Someone who knows their own worth. Someone who trusts themselves completely. Would 18 years seem long, or like exactly the right amount of time to become that person? She sat with that, then smiled. So I'm not waiting 18 years to be free. I'm spending 18 years becoming free. Exactly, I said. The destination is guaranteed if you stay the course. But the real gift is the journey. 2. This is what people don't understand when they see financially independent people. They see the freedom, the options, the independence. They think, I wish I had that. But they don't see the years of discipline, the thousands of small choices, the character that was built through the process. They want the destination without the journey. But the destination doesn't work without the journey, because the money without the character. That's just a wealthy person who's still psychologically dependent on others. But the character with the money, that's true freedom. The final lesson, you're already wealthy. Let me leave you with one final truth, one that might seem contradictory. You don't need millions to be free from people. The moment you stop needing their approval, you're already free. The moment you stop making decisions based on their opinions, you're already independent. The moment you trust yourself more than their validation, you're already wealthy. The money helps, dramatically, practically. It gives you time, options, security, comfort. But the psychological freedom, that's available right now. You can start living free today, even while building toward financial freedom. 2. Stop buying things to impress people who don't care. Stop attending events you hate to maintain relationships you don't value. Stop performing for approval you don't actually need. Stop making yourself small to make others comfortable. Start saying no without explanation. Start choosing yourself. Start trusting your own judgment. This doesn't require money. It requires courage. And here's what's beautiful. When you start living this way, the financial freedom comes faster because you're spending less on performance. You're investing more in independence because you're making decisions from clarity, not fear, because you're already practicing the mindset of freedom. Let me tell you about my own moment of realization. I'd been building wealth for 12 years, had maybe 800,000 invested. Not financially independent yet, but getting close. And I was in a social situation, a dinner party, with people talking about their luxury purchases, their expensive renovations, their impressive vacations. 10 years earlier, I would have felt inadequate, behind. Less than I would have gone home and questioned my choices, wondered if I was missing out. But that night, I felt nothing but pity, not judgment, not superiority, pity. Because I could see what they couldn't. They were on a treadmill, running faster and faster. Never arriving, I was climbing a mountain. Each step brought me closer to the summit. They were spending everything to appear successful. I was building everything to be free. They owned impressive things. I was becoming an impressive person. And in that moment, years before I reached complete financial independence, I realized I was already free. Free from needing their approval. Free from measuring myself by their standards. Free from the anxiety that used to drive my choices. The money would come, but the freedom was already here.